this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another video. You know what today is. It is Sovereign Saturday. You are the leader of a tiny nation. Now, just go with me on this because, yeah, when I say tiny nation, I do mean tiny nation because it's more than just when you're just out there by yourself. Yeah, you want to start off as a sovereign man, but many of you want a family. Many of you want a legacy. Now, remember what I've talked about before when I've talked about you having a household. I'm going to tell you what, every single household is a tiny nation. Every single household is a tiny subculture, even if you're by yourself. Because there's certain ways you want stuff done in there. There's certain ways you do things, how you clean, how you like make your money and everything, or how you spend your money, how you manage it, the clothes you wear, the things you do, the food you eat, everything. And as a sovereign man, you are the leader of that. But it's a tiny nation. It's a tiny nation. In fact, depending on your culture and everything, it can become a larger nation because you have some nations with patriarchs and indeed some with matriarchs, but then they have a big extended family. Despite all the talk now about just people being by themselves and everything, you still have families. And that family is a nation within itself. In fact, when you really look at how nations began, they began as families. Because as the families grew, they became clans, they became ethnic groups and everything. So think about that. Think about it. You setting the tone. You setting the tone for not just yourself and your immediate family, but future generations. Think about how that you're raising your children, the values that you're instilling upon them. And trust me, you're instilling some values. Yeah, they gonna fight against it because that's what young people do. But then when you see when they're older, they'll be doing the exact same thing. And all you had to do, and they might even tell you too, and they might be like, yeah, I remember you told me to do this. Now I'm telling my sons and daughters to do the same thing. Yeah, having the same trouble, and you'll just be like sipping your tea like, oh, really? But think about that. You're the leader. When you bring a lady into your family, for all you men out there, see, you're not just bringing somebody just to serve and everything. They are part of the culture too. That's why I always talk about you have a woman who is in cooperation to your operation. Because it's bigger than you. It's how you raising your children. It's how you directing them. It'll be like the jobs, businesses, and stuff that they'll want to get. That's why you see a lot of small businesses, they'll say like, I'll throw out the name Smith. Nothing against or for anybody whose last name is Smith, but they'll say like Smith and Sons. That's an economy. Think about it. Let me talk about the economy thing. You have a tiny economy in your family, in your little nation, because it's how you spending your money, it's how it's leaving your hands, it's how you bringing money in. Every little thing. That's why I say, I was talking with a consultation client a few weeks ago, and I said, marriage is bigger than just love. That's a family right there. You got to look at the communications. It's a business in some cases. You have to look at that. And then when you bring in children, and anybody who's had children, no, they don't quite go according to plan. You can try, you can have an idea, but yeah, they're going to do some stuff, but you can still have a general idea how you want to raise them, what you want to instill upon them as far as everything. Now, yeah, there's still some families out there with problems and everything, but ideally, you're the leader. You find the direction to go. You see ahead. And when I say leader, I don't mean you're a dictator. You don't want that thing. When you get married, when you develop a family, you want people who cooperate with you naturally, who respect you naturally. But it's still a tiny nation. It's still a tiny nation. Now that nation might not be any bigger than an acre of land. Shoot, it might be an apartment somewhere, but it's still a little nation. And as a leader, you do have to be responsible because, like I said, it's bigger than just love. Oh yeah, you find that she's fine and all that. She got those nice breastises and a big old butt. But it's bigger than that. You got to think, okay, are y'all on the same accord as far as money? Do you have a wealth consciousness while she has a poverty consciousness? That could be a problem. That could mess with your nation. You know? You worship God a certain way. She worships God a different way. That could have a problem. You want to like save money to send your children to an exclusive private school. She don't have any problem sending them to a public school. That's going to be a problem. Like when you think about it, when you not just being a sovereign man, that's one thing. But then when you expand that to a lady, okay, fine. You know, she's attractive and all of that. Y'all need to be on the same accord. Y'all need to be on the same accord. Y'all need to be equally yoked. That is very important. You know, on the Christian path, when they say equally yoked, they mean that. That's very important. But then beyond that, when you're bringing in children, how are you going to raise those children? You know, how are you going to raise them? What are you going to teach them? Where are you going to live? Where are you going to have your nation? There's so many little things. But regardless of what you do, regardless of your path, you are the leader. You have to be responsible. It's not one thing you just come home and just sit in, they just do whatever. And there's plenty of families like that. And are they doing well? Oh no, they just all over the place. You don't want that. You want to set up something that's very nice, something that is very good. You want to set up something, you got to look at it as a nation. What is the economy? What are the philosophical paths that you want to follow? Everything. How will you bring in You even setting up the tone for future generations. Let me hit that real quick. I know that's a little deeper, but you setting up the tones. Okay, say you have children. However you treating your wife, that's how your sons, they gonna look for the same thing. And how you treating your daughters, like daughters. You know, they always talking about like young men need like these fathers and stuff. So do the daughters, because the daughters are gonna look for their first imprint really, before they even have sex, is really their father. So you setting up future generations. You have a great responsibility. When you bringing in people, when you creating a family, when you creating a household, you setting up something for future generations. That's why you have some men who have done a very good job, patriarchs, who've done a very good job. Shoot, they setting up something for their great-grandchildren. That's how powerful it is, all right? But you are the leader. Always remember that. Now, if you even if you just want to be just by yourself or something, you have the right to be. You're still the leader there. But then when you bringing in a family, you bringing in a wife, you bringing in children, and then they bringing in mates, you setting up something. You are setting up a family. You're setting up a nation. You are the leader of a tiny nation. I want you to think about that, all right? Keep that in mind. So that's all I have for today. I want y'all to keep rising to become the sovereign man. And for the ladies, sovereign woman or sovereign person that you are meant to be, all right? So that's all I have for today. Peace and blessings.